start a mercy ministry, if you were to start a mercy ministry, how would you do so? And thinking about specifically this community, as you see here, there's a lot of Korean Americans, so a lot of them work with first generation Koreans in this church. How do you mobilize them? Or the youth? I think a lot of people here work with youth. And just in general, if you want to answer any one part of those questions on how do you just practically show mercy, if you were to start a mercy ministry right here, right now, what would you do?
I would caution against starting off projects, because I think I've seen many folks who are enamored with a project, and they look at something that was done somewhere else, and then they say, "Oh my goodness, that's great what they're doing, and we need to do that here." And so that's how they start off, instead of really taking the time to get to know the needs that are in the neighborhood, in the community. I think that's probably the first place to start, and that can take years. You want to get out there and you want to see what's happening, and if you have eyes open for this kind of thing, and asking the right questions of where are the needs, what is going on in our neighborhood, and what's going on right in my backyard. That where there are people, broken people, where there are struggling people, and I think when you start to ask those questions, you start to see where you live in a whole new light, and then I think that's what's going to start informing whatever kinds of projects you take on, being very creative with what we have, but I think first of all we need to identify what's going on, and what is the Lord doing here, and who are the people, and what are the needs. We need to ask those questions first, and then we start to talk about what are the gifts of the people, and not just within the church. I think sometimes when we start constructing ministries, we're looking at just recruiting church people to do different things, but looking at the community and even the hurting people themselves, and asking the question, what gifts do they bring? What can they contribute? Part of course, what we were referring to earlier is that when we look at when we look at the poor, when we look at the struggling, we almost assume that they have nothing to give to the process, and this is simply not true. And it's part of our own self-righteousness that makes this happen. Looking afield and really being able to ask, what are the gifts that God has brought together, and how can we mobilize it, and how can I be a neighbor, how can I be a friend, how can I walk alongside of people and be with people so that we can be catalysts for some of these things happening. I think that's what I would say to start with things.
I feel like the answer to that question would be I wouldn't start a mercy ministry for a long time. I would be someone who's much more apt to fund a mercy ministry, to serve in a mercy ministry, to get involved in a mercy ministry, to learn from a mercy ministry. And then when you know that that's your calling, because I think it's a very specific reality that you're starting a whole new initiative that's going to do something. And one of the things that I have an opportunity to do is coach a lot of nonprofit leaders and ministries, and there are so many ministries that desperately need high-capacity volunteers, not somebody to fold envelopes in the back room, but someone who's got a master's degree in business or something like that to help walk alongside of them. So in saying that, there's so many different ways you can serve and be effective, even to do fundraising or any number of different things like that. But I think the last thing I would do is probably just start a new initiative, because I feel compassion without really spending a lot of time and making sure that's something that I'm called to and I'm gifted to do, and I have a strong team around me to fulfill it, and I can build a sustainable model that's not just going to start something and then 2 years later we're figuring out how to make it work.
Just to add, not to subtract at all from what they're saying, I think that's really important. I think maybe the first step is really prayer, is seeking the Lord and seeking Him faithfully, not just praying kind of because we can pray about it, but really getting a group of people that are passionate about this and start asking God what He wants you to do. And I really think that when you seek the Lord, He'll put you in the place that you need to be.
Yeah, I think making friends is really big. Making friends inside the community, because I think a lot of us, we're in churches and we're in communities, and we get these awesome ideas. We want to get these ideas started, and then you start doing it for a couple of months, and then you realize you meet this person that says, "Oh, we already do that," and we need these volunteers, and you're taking them from us, you know. And you realize, wow, like this is already going on in my community. It's just that I haven't made enough friends to know it was. And so I think making friends in the community and getting to know what people are doing already, asking a ton of questions, almost being annoying, and just spending a lot of time getting to know the nonprofits and churches in your area. I think that's the biggest thing. And then that's when kind of like, I think pieces start coming together. Like, well, we have somebody at our church who has this gift. And I know you guys have been looking for this for like 3 years. You know, can we? And I think making friends is huge in the community.
Thank you.
That reminds me of Bob Lupton, who's been in Atlanta doing community development. He talks about good Christians, bad neighbors, because they're so wrapped up in their church. Everything that they do is church, and they don't spend time in the neighborhood. They don't have friends in the community, and I think that's we're cutting ourselves short.